My name is Jess and welcome to the Storyteller Fox. Come along and listen to read aloud books, be it for bedtime, story time, or simply to read along.
Sleeping Beauty, retold by Kate Knighton, illustrated by Jana Costa. Read aloud by the Storyteller Fox. This fairy tale is titled Sleeping Beauty. Chapter 1. Good News. Many years ago, a king and queen lived in a magical castle. They had everything they could want, except a baby. Year after year, the queen stitched and sewed tiny clothes, and the king made toys in his palace workshop. But still, there was no baby. Then one day, while the queen sat knitting by the lake, a bright green frog hopped, skipped, and jumped right onto her lap.
"Don't be sad, Your Majesty," said the frog. "You are going to have a baby this year."
What? And with that, he bowed and leaped back into the lake.
Rabbit.
True to the frog's words, the queen gave birth to a lovely baby girl. "I shall call her Rose," she declared happily. The king was so pleased he planned a feast to celebrate. "I shall invite every prince and princess in the land," he decided, and asked 7 fairies to be Rose's fairy godmothers. The king sent the invitations by bluebird post, and everyone agreed to come. Servants scrubbed and cleaned until the castle gleamed. They had never been a party like it. There had never been a party like it. Chapter 2. 7 Wishes. On the day of the feast, crowds came to cheer and watch the guests arrive. The men wore cloaks of the finest velvet, and the women shimmered in silks. Seven fairies flew in through a castle window, leaving a glittering trail behind them. "The godmothers!" cried the king, holding out his hands to greet them. "Let the feast begin!" announced the queen, and merry music filled the room. The tables were piled high with scrumptious food, and everyone ate off golden plates. When no one could manage another bite, the fairies gathered before the king and queen. "We have some wishes for Princess Rose," said Snowdrop, the first fairy, with a curtsy. She fluttered her fairy fingers. "Rose will be the most beautiful girl in the kingdom." Then Honeysuckle waved her wand. and she'll be clever enough to beat the king at chess. The third fairy, Willow, floated over. She will have grace in all she does, and she'll dance to perfection, added Bluebell. Blossom and Buttercup wished that the Rose would play every instrument like an angel and sing like a nightingale. Everyone wondered what Jasmine, the seventh and wisest fairy, would wish for. Chapter 3. The Uninvited Guest. As Jasmine hovered over the cradle, a blast of icy air swept through the great hall. Then a chilling voice rang out of nowhere. "Haven't you forgotten someone?" Suddenly, the mean fairy Nightshade appeared in a whirlwind of foul green smoke. "How dare you not invite me?" she roared. "We didn't mean to, Nightshade," the king stammered. "We just—" "Forgot you," finished the queen meekly. "Forgot me?" Nightshade screamed so fiercely the flames in the fireplace went out. "Well, you won't forget this." She flickered her cloak and marched up to the cradle. "Now, my pretty," she purred, lifting a golden curl with a pony finger, "what shall I wish for you?" Everyone in the palace held their breath. Silent tears ran down the queen's face. Nightshade leaned into the cradle and snarled, "On your 16th birthday, you will prick your finger on a spinning wheel and not be alive." "No!" cried the king, but Nightshade crackled gleefully and disappeared with a defeating bang. "I still have my wish," said Jasmine softly. "I can't undo that wicked spell, but I can try to change it." "You will prick your finger, little Rose," Jasmine began. "But you won't pass away. You and everyone else in the castle will fall into a deep sleep. Only a kiss from your true love will break the spell." "Take away every spinning wheel in the land at once," bellowed the king. "Rose must never see one. She must never see one." That night, the flames from a massive bonfire could be seen for miles. They licked the dark sky like serpents' tongues. Chapter 4. A Special Birthday. The years passed and Rose grew into a delightful girl. Everyone she met adored her. She danced, sang, and played music as wonderfully as the fairies had wished. She was clever and played to win. Rose loved playing hide and seek in the castle gardens, and secretly she liked to sketch the prince of her dreams. Time went by happily, and Rose's 16th birthday drew near. The castle began to buzz with excitement. The king and queen were planning a huge ball. Rose was so excited she could hardly keep still. Chapter 3: The Long Sleep. The night of the ball finally arrived. Handsome princes and pretty princesses flooded in the great hall. The king and queen smiled proudly as they watched Rose from their thrones. She swirled and twirled in a dazzling ball gown, and every prince fell in love with her. When the feasting was nearly over, Rose pleaded for a game. "Hide and seek," she shouted, and dashed off into the castle. She raced up twisting stairs, down a long, narrow corridor, through a tiny door, and found herself at the staircase of a tower she had never seen before. Soft singing floated down the turret stairs. In a trance, Rose followed the music. At the top of the stairs, she found a heavy iron door. Inside, an old woman sat hunched over a spinning wheel. "Come and see, my pretty," she said, beckoning Rose with a bony finger. "I'm spinning, my dear," croaked the old woman. "It's amazing," said Rose, touching the silky thread. "May I try?" "Of course," said the old woman, taking her hand. At once, Rose snapped out of the trance. "Ow!" she cried, and she pricked her finger. Rose fell to the floor. The old woman crackled, then disappeared into a whirlwind of foul green smoke. In the same instant, everyone in the castle fell asleep. The king nodded off over his pudding, and the court jester froze mid-leap. All the cloaks stopped. All the clocks stopped. The place was silent and still, except for the rose bushes. They spread like ivy, covering everything in their path. They grew so quickly that soon the entire castle was covered in thick roots and sharp thorns. Chapter 6: A Prince Rides By. For 100 years the castle stayed hidden. Only the tops of the towers showed through the bushes. Passers-by stopped to stare at the forgotten castle. Princes from far and wide heard about the spell. They came in their hundreds to try to rescue the princess known as Sleeping Beauty. But the thorns got their skin, and the roots wrapped around their legs like snakes. One by one, they gave up. One day, a brave prince named Florian rode by. He had dreamed of Sleeping Beauty and was determined to find her. He pulled out with a flourish and began to tackle the spiky bushes. As Florence touched a branch, something magical happened. Each sharp thorn became a sweet-smelling rose. A path cleared before him. He followed its twists and turns until he reached the topmost turret and climbed to where Sleeping Beauty lay. Florence's heart fluttered like a bird when he saw her. She was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Taking her hands, he kissed her soft lips. Her eyes flickered open, and Rose found herself face to face with the prince of her dreams. "You're the prince I drew," she cried. He bowed. "Prince Florine here to rescue you," he announced, and scooped her up. As they walked through the tunnels of roses, everyone else in the castle woke up too. The king fell into his pudding with a splosh, and the court jester landed with an unexpected bump. Rose and Florine entered the great hall. "My Rose!" cried the queen. "And her true love," smiled the king. Rose and Florine were married the very next day. They lived happily ever after, and the prince always lost at chess. Sleeping Beauty was first recorded by the French storyteller called Charles Perrault in 1697. But there have been many different versions since. This version is based on the retelling by Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, brothers who lived in Germany in the early 1800s. The end.
The end. And that's the end of our story time. For more bedtime stories, you can check on our YouTube playlist or listen to more storytime compilations at the Storyteller Fox. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.